Okay, let's start up again. Let's. I think I've got it where I can actually share uh, the PowerPoint presentation running. So let's take a look. So if we look at it as our big problem is print calendar. Remember what we saw in the previous slide was how to do that, where what we're going to do is we're going to ask the user for a year and what month they want to see, and we're going to print the, so 4 is April, the 4th month. We're going to print out the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Saturday, and what days of April there were there. Okay, that's the plan. That's what we want to do. Now that's not a single line of code, right? We can't just write, a single line of code to do that. Right? So therefore, we can break that problem into smaller problems. So if we look at it as this is our main problem, this is our main thing we want to do, we can break it into, there are two options here. There's two tasks. We want to read our input, right? Read our information from our user, and we want to print the month out. And as you can kind of see this little tiny red mark here, what we're going to see is that actually there's more inside of this too, right? Actually more inside of both of them, really, if you think about it. But so read input, you guys have all done that before. You know how to take input from a user and store it in a variable. And I'm hoping you saw from the what types of input we're getting. We're getting a year, and we're getting a number of the month. So 1 through 12, number of the month. So you should be able to look at those and say, okay, so both of those should be integers. I'm going to store this information into 2 integer variables. Okay, but basically pretty simple task there on the read input. Print month, however, is a little bit different, a little bit more involved. I'm going to print the month title, because remember, they gave us the number 4, but we don't want to print 4/2009. We might want to print, April 2009. So that's going to be a task in and of itself. But then we want to print the month body as well. Okay, and the reason why this is 2 separate things is the month title is going to be just that header, April 2009, and the days of the week, Sunday through Saturday. The month body is going to be all those numbers of when the days fall. Okay, so we need to have something that gets the month name. So once we have the month name from our 4 or whatever number the user enters, once we have the month name, we can print the month title. We're done. April 2009, January 2020, whatever. And then Sunday through Friday is going to all be the same. We're done. Now we just need to work on printing the month body. Okay. We need to have some way to get the start day. What day did April 1st, what day was April 1st, 2009? What day is January 1st, 2020? We can't just make it up. We have to have some method to be able to get that information. And we also need to have some way to get the number of days in the month, right? So you guys know that not every month has the same number of days, right? So if it's January, it's going to be 31 days. If it's February, it's going to be, could be 28, could be 29. We even got to figure out that too, right? Because if it's a leap year, it could be 29. If it's not a leap year, so which comes back to, well, we did this before, how to get a leap year, right? How to determine if a year is a leap year. So we're not going to go over that again, right? But that could be a method. Send to the year number, get back true or false, is a leap year, right? Okay. So get the total number of days after the start day, right? Right. Okay. And then, yeah, and that's going to use is a leap year in order to get that, right? So we have to get the start day, get how many times we need to go through printing stuff out based on the number of days in the month, and is it a leap year? So these are all parts of this big problem. This big problem has all these other sub-problems that we have to solve. So there's 2 different ways we can think about, well, more than 2, but let's talk about 2. 2 different ways that we can talk about solving this problem. One is we could do a top-down approach. which means we write the main method, including calls to methods below it that we'll use. Okay, and we just don't have those other methods written yet. So when we try to run this, we'll get errors because these other sub methods don't exist. And what we do is then as we need those sub methods, we write them. So we can run the main program. Oh, read input doesn't exist. Let's create read input. Okay, read input. Get that information from the user. Print month. Well, print month doesn't exist, so we do that. Then we try to run it. Okay. Along the way, we can write what's called method stubs. So for an example, is leap year, we could just write the method is leap year, return true, and it's done. It exists. It doesn't return correct values, but it does return a correct type. So we can use it for testing the stuff up above, but we need to make sure we write the correct code at some point. But anyway, so top down, we write this. As we need the sub things, we write those as well. And then at some point we get all the way down to the bottom and we finalize the last thing and everything should work well. Okay, so that's what's called the top-down approach. There's also what's called the bottom-up approach. We write the lowest level, what you might call the leaf nodes. So like is leap year has no sub problems, so we write that one first. Get month name has no sub problems, so we write that one. Read input has no sub problems, so we write that one. So we write all these leaves, then we go up a level and we write stuff that now has either no sub problems or all the sub problems exist. So after we write is leap year, we can't do get total number of days because that one still has a sub problem that we haven't done yet. So we do is leap year, then we do get number of days in a month. Now we can do get total number of days. Now we can get start date. Now we can do print month body, and so forth. Okay. So this would be the bottom up approach. We write the leaf, we test it, make sure it works well. Then we go up a level, go up a level, go up a level, until we finally get all the way up to the top level and we write it. Okay, so top down, write the big thing, fill in the smaller pieces as we need them. Bottom up, we create the small things and we build them together into something bigger. Neither one of these is the right way. I'm gonna probably say that so many times in this semester. There is not one right way to create programs. Okay, there's lots of wrong ways. Don't get me wrong. There are lots of wrong ways, but there's not one single right way to do this. Do you want to build the building blocks and put them together into making a program? That's fine. You can do it that way. Do you want to start with the big thing and kind of fill things in? Start with the big jar, if you will, and fill it in with what the contents need to be? That's fine as well. Okay? Either way you want to look at it, either way you want to do it is fine. Okay. So again, we talked about this, the top-down approach versus the bottom-up. All right. Some benefits to using this whole idea of the stepwise refinement. That's what this is called. Okay. All right. This is what we're going to do in our second hour here. Okay, and this will probably be all we are going to be able to do for today, actually. All right. Some examples. Palindrome. Man, this is a very common problem that we do in programming to help us understand how strings work and how to process through a string using a loop. Okay. Number rectangle. If we give two numbers, a row and a column, print rows are the numbers 1 through column. So basically, if we said I want 2 rows and 3 columns, then we would print 1, 2, 3, and then another row of 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's a pretty simple, pretty common problem we give. All right. Some other examples here: the substring to a character, count the number of characters, count the number of times a character appears in a string. Menu to display a set of menu options. Really useful for in a program like a banking program, or even in what we're doing now, where you have Well, no, no, that's not part of this assignment. It will probably be part of the next assignment, though, to display a set of menu where you want to give a set of choices and you want to be able to, yeah, and maybe even return a value from it. Okay, so let's finish off these slides and then we can do the examples. Okay, so let's talk about a palindrome. A palindrome is any text that is the same whether it's spelled forward or backward. Okay, so an example of a palindrome, race car. Okay, so a race car is a palindrome. Why? Because RACECAR is the same as RACECAR. Okay, so forward, backward is the same. Mom or dad, right? They're palindrome. Kayak, or if you're speaking Turkish, kayak, right? That's a palindrome. Noon, right, is a palindrome. And then one that I don't know if you spend much time on the internet, right? But taco cat is one that'll show up a lot. Taco cat, just a silly word, right? Okay, so these are all examples of palindromes. And what we'll do is we'll say, okay, I want to write a method that I can send it a string. The method will determine if the string contains a palindrome, and if it does, I want to say return true. And if it does not contain a palindrome, I want to return false. Okay, all right, so we'll talk about that one. The idea of the number rectangle, right? So 5 and 5 give me 5 rows and 5 columns of the numbers 1 through whatever. 2 and 3, 2 rows and 3 columns with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Okay, we'll look at that example. We'll try to work through that one. All right. Some other methods: string to a substring to a character. If I say, okay, I want to give it this string and the character M, and I am going to give the substring of of that. Okay. All right. So count the number of times a character appears in a string. If I give it this string, okay, and the letter B, it tells me that the letter B appears 6 times. Okay. And there's lots of different ways that we can do this. I'll show you a few that I would think of. And then it's a set of menu options. Okay. All the slides there. Is there a question? Oh, was it not sharing the screen? Okay. Okay, good, good. All right. So let's go ahead and just look at those examples of what I'm going to do now.
Herkesten gelirken de paket.
Listeye bak hatta liste var ha.
I think somebody has their microphone on. Is there a question? No. All right. Let's on my Java screen. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me increase the size a little bit. Okay. There was one thing I realized I wanted to do before we go into these examples. I wanted to show you this whole pass by value. Okay. All right. So here, I have this whole swap, num1, num2. Okay. So the idea is, before calling the swap method, num1 is whatever, num2 is whatever. And then we want to swap num1 and num2. Now, the way that we often will do this, when we talk about arrays starting next week, we'll talk about how to swap values in an array. Okay, and we can do that using a method unlike what we're about to show you here. So the idea is we create a temporary container. So if we had, let's say that you had two containers, one with water and one with cola in it, right? And you wanted to swap them because you want to drink cola, but you want the cup that the water's in or something. I don't know, right? You couldn't just dump one into the other, right? Because then you get cola and water mixed together, and nobody wants that, right? So what you would need is you would need a third container. You would need to have some other cup that you take the water in or the cola in, and you pour that into that temporary container. Then you take that which is in the other container and pour it into the first one. So here, let's say this was cola. Okay, so cola goes into the temporary container. Water goes into the old cola container. Then cola goes into the old water container. Okay. Wish I could show it to you. If we were sitting here face to face, I would show you this using cups and bottles and whatever. Okay, so this is a very typical way to swap things. You have a temporary container. You take one thing and put it in there. Take the second thing, put it into the first container. Take the temporary thing and put it into the second container. Okay, so then these things get swapped. But the problem is that they don't get swapped in the main method, as we'll see. So if we run this, what we'll see is that before the swap method, num1 is 1 and num2 is 2. Inside of the swap method, before swapping, n1 is 1, n2 is 2. After swapping, n1 is 2, n2 is 1. Oh, good, we swapped them. That was what we wanted to do. But num1 is still 1, num2 is still 2. So they didn't swap outside. Okay. And the reason why, so we're going to pull this off of the canvas. Okay. So I'm going to put num1 over here, num2 over here. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to take n1 and n2. Okay. So now notice that num1 copied into n1, num2 copied into n2. They are not the same variables. They're just containers that contain the same value. So imagine if we took cola and copied cola into here. Okay, so we didn't take that same cola itself and move it in here. We just copied it. It's a copy of it. Okay. So then, now we're going to see what happens with the temp. So temp, we have this temp variable. So we took n1 and put it into temp. We took n2 and put it into n1. And we took temp and put it into n2. So now these are swapped. But notice that num1 and num2 did not swap. They didn't swap because, again, these are not the same containers. They just had copies of the same value. Okay, so now these n1 and n2 are swapped. But when we go back up to the main program, num1 and num2 still have their same old values. Also, by the way, when we're running in this upper program, we're not inside of the swap method anymore. So therefore, we don't have access to n1 and n2. If we tried to use these variables here, we would get a compiler error. Okay, so that's why. So be careful. The reason why I'm getting through all this is I want you guys to be careful when calling methods with the value, to understand that you're just copying the value into that method. You're not actually sending it that variable itself. Okay? All right. So let's talk through how we do some of these things. Okay, let's talk through some of these examples. The biggest one being this let's talk about this palindrome example. Okay? So how can we do this? How can we tell. So first, let's give our method a name. Let's see, public static. What type should it return? Should it be a void method? What type do you think it should return? Term string. Is that what type it should return or what type it should get? Remember, it can only return one value. All right. So remember what I said was we're going to send it a string. We're going to send it a text. I gave it away. We're going to send it a string. We're going to send it a string, but it's going to tell us is palindrome. It's going to tell us true or false. It's going to say yes, it is a palindrome, or no, it's not a palindrome. Right? Yeah. So some of you guys, I think some of you guys got confused on the question. Is what I was saying was you thought I was asking what type is it going to take? But yes, it's going to return, those of you who are saying this, a Boolean, because it's going to return a true or false. Yes, it is a palindrome. No, it's not a palindrome. One or the other. Okay? So then we can say, is palindrome be the name of our method. And then we will send it a string. Name it whatever we want. It doesn't have to be named anything in particular. Okay? We're going to send it a string, and the method will tell us yes, it is a palindrome, or no, it's not. Okay. So now what can we do? Let's see. We could just return true. Everything's always a palindrome, right? All the examples I gave were palindromes, right? It compiles. That's good. Now I say let's see what happens if I pass it race car. True. All right. Let's see what else. All right, so we're done, right? Right. So this method works. No, this doesn't work, right? Because what happens if I send it computer, right? Computer isn't a palindrome, but yet, it returns true. Okay. Well, how about if we do this? How about if we do, okay, if text dot equals let's just do that a few times, right? So let's do some different ones. What was it? Taco cat. What was it? Mom was one. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll return false. Okay. Will this work? Will this build? Will this compile? Oh, it compiles. Let's see. Taco cat. True. Race car. True. Computer. False. Ah, we're good, right? It's all good? Oh, yeah, kayak. Well, wait a second. Yeah, kayak. You asked about kayak. Yeah, let's see. Kayak. So we're going to have to type in every word in the world that's a palindrome, you think? Is that what you think we'll have to do? No, right? This would be bad. This would not be. This would be very difficult to put every word in the world, right? That could be a palindrome, especially because let's take a look. Let's say an example like Actually, one of you guys put in a good one. Let's see. Let me go find it in the comments here. This one here. One of you guys put that in there, right? Put it as a lowercase, make it all lowercase. This should be a palindrome, right? And yet it returns false. So even this, that it's like, I can't tell, that doesn't even look like a real English word, right? But yet it should return true. So this is not going to be a good solution for us. All right, so we have to do something else. We have to figure out how to do this for a general solution instead of just specific for certain words. Okay. So it looks like, right. So more silly examples, right? Right. Okay. So what is a palindrome? A palindrome is where, so let's take a look at the example here. It's where the first letter is the same as the last letter, right? And the second to last, sorry, the second letter is the same as the second to last, and the third is the same as the third to last, and it keeps working its way inward, right? So what if there's a way where we could say, okay, if char x dot char at 0 equals whatever the last letter, how can we figure out the last letter? Well, in TacoCat, it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would be 6. All right. All right. The length of the string minus 1. Good. You said minus 1. I'm assuming you meant text dot length 1. Okay. If they're the same, right? I'll make this out, otherwise the compiler's going to freak out. If these are the same, then it's a palindrome, right? And then we could put inside of this if and we could put inside of this. Right. So if we get onto all this, 0, 1, 2, so forth, right? If we can go all the way down into that, right, then I'm true. All right. Otherwise, return false. This is not the perfect solution yet. This isn't a final solution yet, but I want you to understand the process of how I'm thinking through this. Okay. Because what I'm saying is let's compare the first character to the last. Let's compare the second character to the second to last. Let's compare the third character to the third to last, and so forth. And if these are all the same, then we return true. Otherwise, the reason why this is outside this is because if we don't return inside of this, then we're going to return false. Okay. Now this is going to be a more general solution, and you'll see why. Oh, wait, who am I missing? I see. It's close, but so now, if I come in here and do kayak, for example, true. If I do race car, true. If I do taco cat, true. Oh, good, right? If I do computer, false. So far, it's going really well for me, right? But what if I do this one that y'all gave me as an example here, this one here? Now, even though this is a palindrome, oh, it did give me true. It gave me true, but for the wrong reason. Oh, hold on. Let me come up with one. Let's see. What if I did A, C, A. All right. So this should say no. This is not a palindrome, right? Because when it compares C and D, it should give me false, but yet it gives me true. And the reason why is because I only compared the first three to the last three. So what if instead of just, so then if I, okay, so then if I add this, I want to compare the first four. For the first five. You see this is getting kind of out of hand, isn't it? All right. This is kind of getting out of hand. But at the very least, it's giving me the right answer, right? So exactly, DJ, good, all right? So if we can use a loop, so notice that this kind of is doing the same thing over and over again, isn't it? But this index, what is just the position we're at, right? It's going up over here by one every time. It's going down by one over here every time, right? So what if instead of doing this, what if we said, okay, let's have int start equals 0. First character, 0. End equals whatever my text length is, -1. Then I have a 4. I don't have to have a thing because that's actually let me do it this way. While end is greater than 0, okay, and equal to 0. All right. And then I add 1 to start, and I subtract 1 from end. And here's where it's going to get kind of different, is if my start character is not equal to my end character, then what I want to do is I want to return false. If at any point I find that a character at the starting position, 0, for example, the first time through, is not the same as the character at the ending position, I've got a non-palindrome, right? If they're ever not equal, otherwise I don't know. As long as I'm going through, I don't know if I have a palindrome. All I know is each time through the loop that the character at the start of the string is the same as the character at the end of the string. All right. So what I want to do is, if I get through the entire string, if I go all the way from start to end, all right, and every time comparing the starting character, the first character, to the ending character, they're always equal, and I get through the entire string, then I want to say, okay, they were always equal, they must be a palindrome. I know this is a bit confusing, and I would, all right, Eunice, I'm right. Python has the reverse method. Python does palindrome a lot easier than Java. Sorry. Okay. And DJ, you're also, I think, thinking of Python. Python allows for negative indexing. Java does not. Sorry. Java's a little bit less available on that. Okay. Less robust. Okay. So let's see if this works. Let's see. So this should give me false. Good. This should give me true. Good. This should give me false. Good. All right. This, where's the middle character? That should give me true, right? Because I just took out the middle character. Good. Okay. And notice that what happened was each time through, I compared the first character to the last character. Those were the same, so I kept going. And I compared the second to the second to last. That was the same, so I kept going. It was only once, let me show you one that gave me a false. This, let me show you one like this that gave me a false. I compared A to A, they were the same, so I kept going. I compared A to A, they were the same, so I kept going. Same thing with 3, same thing with 4. Right? Then I compared C and D. They were not equal, so I returned false. Now notice for this one, let me go up one. This one, I compared E to T. They were not the same. So I returned false immediately. I didn't even look at the rest of this. Didn't even look at the rest of it at all. Okay? Once it hits a non-matching set of characters, it goes. It returns and keeps going. Okay? I'm not going to go on to more palindrome stuff for this one, but I do want you to take a look at something in this. The way I have this loop set up, I'm going to wait until end is greater than, as long as the end is greater than or equal to 0. Once n becomes negative, right, then I'm done. Right? Which meant, let's just look at a simple example. Let's look at one, right? Which meant I compared M to M, then I compared O to itself, then I compared M to M again. I did twice as many comparisons as I needed to, right? I actually did 3 times in this situation. All right. Okay. I actually did over 3. Right. Okay, that's a good question. Actually, I've seen that a lot. Omron, that's a good question. I've seen that anytime I've given this example in a quiz before. I've seen exactly what you're talking about. Let's look at that and let's see why that's not a good idea. Why that doesn't work. Okay, but it compared the first character to the last, the second to the second to last, then the third to the third to last. But I already compared M to M the first time through. Why do I need to compare it again? I don't. I'm doing too many comparisons. This loop is running much longer than it should be. Right. So I'm going to leave it as a take home for you guys to consider. How could I say, instead of going all the way through the whole string, is there a way that I can reduce the number of comparisons? Okay. So Omran, I want to talk about that. Because that's a very good question. I want to make sure to cover that. So she's saying, why don't we just do this? All right, so let's compile it. Take a look at what happens. Okay. If I give it mom, true. If I give it this, true. If I give it this, false. If I give it this, false. So far, it seems to be working. Right? But what about, what was it? What about that one? That one gives me true, even though it's not a palindrome. Okay. The reason why, let's step through it. Actually, I can't use debug because there's no main method. Okay. All right, I'll tell you. Let's step through it. Let's step through it with this as an example. So I'm going to start at the first character, comparing it to the last. If they are not equal, then I'm going to return false. But they are equal. So I'm going to hit this else, return true. I don't continue going, right? If they are the same, if only the first and the last character are the same, it's just going to return true and be done. Once a return statement is encountered, we leave the method. We're done, even if it's still in the middle of a loop. Okay. The problem is that what we don't want to just compare the first and last character and return based on if they're the same. Right? We wouldn't even need the loop if that's what we were trying to do. What we want to do is we want to keep going as long as we keep finding characters that are on the same on the front and the back. As long as we keep finding the first character and the last character to be the same, and we keep moving in towards the center, right? We want to keep going. We only want to return false if we find something that doesn't match. If we find two characters in the same position on either end that don't match. We want to return false then. Think of it this way, maybe. If we keep finding matches, then what we have is a palindrome so far. We don't know if we have a palindrome period. We only know that we have a palindrome so far. Okay? And we need to keep going to find out if we do. And so if we get through the whole string, the whole loop, then we've done the whole string and we had a palindrome so far through the whole string. So if we have a palindrome, we have a palindrome. That's the only way that we know that we have a palindrome is if we go through the whole string and we never had two characters that were opposite. Okay. Sort of, you're thinking along the right idea. Those that are saying, what about just dividing by 2? You're thinking the right idea. The problem is that if we use end as the char at, and we start in the middle, then we'll be comparing the first character to the character at the middle, which isn't what we wanted to do. We want to start with one character, and we want to end at the very end. I will go ahead and, like I said, I want you guys to be thinking about this at home, and we're going to move on to another example for now, but I will give you a hint as to how I would solve this to make the comparisons, cut the number of comparisons in half. Is what I would do is, instead of having a start and an end, part of my solution would be to only have one iterator. Okay, and I would have the start be 0, and I would use a calculation based on start to determine what my last character I should be comparing to is. Okay, so start with that idea. How could I do this with only one iterator instead of 2? Okay, all right. But for now, let's move on to another example. Let's do the substring to a character. So remember, this one is, we have, let me copy the text of this one. Okay. So the substring character, we want to get the characters in a string up to the first time a certain character appears. So if we give it this string and the letter M, we get just this part. We just want just that part because the M is here and we want just this part here. Okay. So the first questions that you need to answer anytime that a method is given, anytime that a request for a method is given, 2 questions you need to ask yourself. 1, what am I putting into the method? What parameters am I passing? What types of parameters am I passing? 2, what am I getting back? What am I returning? Okay, so we'll put the return type here. We'll give it a method name, a fun method name. Okay, and then types of parameters here. So, question: what parameter type am I returning? Let's go with the first blank first. What parameter type am I getting back? Good, Furcon. Yes. So we're getting back a string. Okay. Because we're getting back specifically we're getting back a substring. We're getting a string that is a smaller version of this. Okay. Okay. What about the other things? What things am I giving to my method? Okay. Some of you guys have some good idea on one of them. Okay. All right. Looks like with Egypt, Summit, you're the first one that I think. Yeah. So we're going to pass it this, which is a string of characters, and we're going to pass it this, which is a letter. Now, okay, so the first thing we know we're giving it is a string of characters. The second one is a single character, but it could be a string, it could be a char. This one is a little bit of a design decision for you. Okay. Personally, for the way that I would solve this, is I would make this a character. Okay. The reason why you'll see in just a second, but for now, just know that I would do this as a character. However, let me put this at the end over here. String text, string, whatever the character defined is a valid solution as well. Okay, this could be a valid solution. It just depends. It's one of those things you might just need to talk it over with your customer, right, with your user to find out what they're expecting. Okay, let's give it a fun method name. Let's give it a good method name. Eunice, Emma, you actually can't use the index because we are passing it a character, right? Index would tell me what position. So if I were saying, give me up to the 7th character, yes, we could just use a substring method. But because we want to pass it a particular character that appears in the string, then we can't just use the substring method like that, unfortunately. But good question, right? Good way of thinking that. Can't we just use a simple solution? Right. Always be on the lookout for simple solutions to some of these problems. Okay. Like for example, those of you who brought up that Python can just do do a reverse of a string. Absolutely. Python, because it allows for negative indexing, has a very, very simple solution to the palindrome problem. Okay. But unfortunately, Java does not. All right. So, we need to give it a fun method name. Can somebody give me a method name? Anyone? A meaningful method name that tells me what this method's supposed to do. Good, I like it. Cut string. Okay, let's go with that. All right. So, and what we're going to do is we're going to give it a text, or we're going to give it a character, or we're going to try to find it. Okay. So we don't have a simple like what I wish we could do Unisummary is I wish we could just say, return text dot sub string. How did you say it? 0 0 C, right? I'm not sure if this would even compile, honestly. Let's take a look. Because char is an integer type. Yeah, it does. Let's see what happens when we try to run it. Let's give it our example here. Oh, string index out of bounds. End 109. Yeah, because remember this M, what is it? Its ASCII value is yeah, but if we do that, it'll just give us the whole string, right? Batuan? It's good idea. Let's see if we just do that. To do that. Oh, it just gives us the whole thing, so that's not right. We could just say, well, what if we just do this? -2. Simple solutions, right? Oh, well, that works, right? But what if we do, okay, fine, I want up until the first letter I appears. Oh, well, that's not right. Okay, so that's not right. Char at C, text that, you're talking about, text that. Well, that's going to give me the character at C, but I think it's going to give me the index out of bounds thing again. Yeah, string index out of range. Again, because the value of M that we're passing, the value there is the ASCII value, which is 109. So that's not going to be right. So we're unfortunately not going to be able to have a, well, now wait a second. You might be having a good idea here. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. But for now, a solution might be, okay, so none of these seem to be working like we thought they would. So what if instead we said, okay, let's int index. So the index of the character, so we're looking for what the index of the character is, right? Because here's some questions that are not answered, and this is a lot of times why we're programmers sometimes we get into trouble with our users, with our customers, is we don't get all the details, we don't get all the facts from them. So for example, what if we passed it a character that doesn't appear? What if we passed it, like for this, what if we passed it the letter Q, for example? Should I send back the whole string? Should I, what should I do, right? Should I send back nothing? Should I send back the whole string? Should I generate an error? What should I do? Okay, and it's one of those things that the question, we need to ask that question. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to assume, we've talked to the customer and they said, if character is not found, return the whole string. Okay, so in an example like this where I said Q, I would put it there right now, right? Q was 113. We should have just gotten the whole string back instead. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, Deejley. All right. You're where I was thinking just a moment ago. So we'll get there. But for now, I want to do this other longer version of it first. Okay. All right. So we're going to say, okay, we want to take the index, we want to find where this character appears. Okay, so let's go. Actually, let me dive into the for loop the same way I did before. So in the index that we're looking for, we're starting at the beginning of the string. As long as index is less than the length of the string, okay, we want to keep going. We want to keep looking until we find it, and then we'll finally index plus plus. Actually, I'm not going to be able to do it this way, and I'm not going to be able to do it this way. And oh, you'll see why. Actually, I want to use this as an example. Okay, we'll keep looking. If my character at the current index, all right, is equal to my character I'm looking for, then I want to break. Okay. All right. Now, what this means is that if I find my character, get out of the loop. We're done, right? We want to either end the loop when index becomes the text length, or we want to get out of the loop when we find the character. All right. So now we can return text.substring from 0 up to index. All right. So if we never found the character, then I'm just going to return the whole string. If we found the character at some subindex, right, at some index inside of the string, then I'm going to return just that little bit of it. Okay. Now, what you're going to see is this is going to, the way that I've written it so far, is I'm going to get a compiler error. And we talked about this before. The reason why is because index here, it's declared inside of the loop, so it does not exist outside of the loop. Okay. So let's just do it this way. Let's declare it outside of the loop, use it in here. Okay. Does that get rid of my compiler error? It does. Okay. Does this give me what I want? Good. Does this give me what I want? Good. And by the way, there is a space here on the end. Okay. Does this give me what I want? Good. We have a correct solution. Okay, so this solution works. Now, one thing I would tell you is, generally speaking, I would discourage you from using break statements, right? Because I told you when we introduced the break statements before, I don't like them. Do not like controlling loops that way. I want to control the loop using the condition. I don't want to break. So what if instead, what if we said this? Well, you know, we had to declare index outside of the loop anyway. So what if we just take this and move it out of here? Okay. Okay. What if we said, what if we said, if we haven't found it yet, we keep going. Okay. All right. So now we have a for loop, but really we don't have an initial condition and we don't have a loop iterator thing. This isn't a for loop. This is a while loop. Right? So we're going to keep going. Right? Now, there's a slight problem here, and that is that if we find the character at some point, we're just going to be in an infinite loop. Okay. let me, I can't show you because again, I don't have the debug option the way that it's set up. But let's say, for example, we look for the capital S. Okay. Let's say instead of this, we had it like, okay. Then what would happen is, okay, index is 0, index is less than the length, that's fine. C, if C does not equal, if the letter C does not equal the character we're looking for, add 1. So now index is 1. 1 is less than length, good. Okay. The text character S equals S, so we would keep it at 1 and we keep going. All right. So we need to end this whole thing if we find the character, right? We don't want to keep going if we find the character. So instead, what if we did this? Okay. So do you see what happened here? What I did was I put the return inside of the else. Okay. So what it meant was, once I find the character, I'm going to immediately return the substring of what I've got. Okay. Okay. There's only one problem with this as it is, and that is, and you'll see, it should show up in the compile. Right? Is that what if the while loop ends and I never found the character? Okay, well that's easy enough. If I get through the whole loop and I never found the character, I just want to return the text. I just want to return it and be done. Okay. I will address Dijlay's suggestion in just a moment, and then that will be where we'll end early today. We have I have an appointment that I have to go to, and so I wasn't going to be able to be on here past 12 anyway. All right, so let's see what happens now. So I'm looking for I, and I found it. I'm looking for M, good. I'm looking for Q, good. I'm looking for S, good. Okay. All right. I do want to address, because what you've seen here me walk through is 3 different ways of solving this. But I do want to acknowledge Dijlay's suggestion because it's perfect, right? It's a perfect, faster solution to how to do this. What if we use Java's own methods that they have to say, okay, where's the character? Let's just say, Java, you find the character for me. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's an American idiom, I believe, if you don't know it. Right? As I say, okay, I find the character, and I say return that right there. This should work, right? This should possibly do it, right? And so let's see. Let's see some examples. S, give me that. I gives me that. The real question is this one here. What does Q do if it doesn't find the index? Oh, right? Because remember the index of method, and one of you made a comment, so maybe you address this. Ah, good question. Good question, Ozon. Let's look at that, and then we'll end it. Let's fix this problem, then look at Ozon's questions, and if nobody else has any other questions, we'll end there for today. All right. So, what happens if the character C is not found? Index becomes a -1. Well, Java doesn't allow for negative indexing. So what we can do is we can use what is it? binary operator. Can't remember the special name for it, but it's like an if statement, but you don't have an if. So we can return index less than 0. If the index is less than 0, we just want to return the text. Otherwise, we want to return the substring. Right? If our index is less than 0, that means that this character wasn't found, so we're going to do the text. Otherwise, we're going to do otherwise we're going to do the substring from 0 up to wherever it was. Okay. Let's see if this works. All right. So examples, I should give me CSE 101. M should give me also. The whole thing. Good. And S should give me that. And let's talk about E. What's going to happen? What will happen when we do E? It appears twice. All right. Merrick Batuan has his answer that he thinks it'll be. Somebody agreed with him. Arjun. And the stuff from Merrick goes to the end of the string. And that's interesting. E, okay. Yeah. Okay. Recep Summit. We can, if that was what it was, but according to the instructions here, we get the characters in a string up to the first time a certain character appears. So not the last time. So according to the instructions of what we were asked to do, we would need to use this. If the instruction said up to the last time a certain character appears, then we could have done the last index of it. Yeah. Okay. So all you guys are saying CS, CS. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's hit enter and see what happens. All right. Okay. So the first responder was the correct one on this. And the reason why is because, remember, a lowercase e and a capital E are not the same letter. Remember, the ASCII value is different than the ASCII value for this. Okay. Which one's greater? Hopefully you guys remember that the lowercase letters are greater than the uppercase letters. Hopefully you remember that. Greater in value. Okay. So what happened was it looked through here. Now it compared a capital E to a lowercase e and it said those aren't the same. So then it kept going. It eventually got to this and it said, hey, that one matches. Let me give you everything up to there. Okay. Yes, that's right. It was on E. Lowercase e is different than uppercase e. Exactly. All right. So as I said I would do, I will end here for today in terms of any new discussion. But I do want to leave you with one more thought experiment, thought assignment for you to think about. A couple of them. One, there was a question on here that made me think of it. But okay, what if we did want to be able to give a lowercase or uppercase letter here and it find either one? So what if we wanted it to take this lowercase e, match it to this uppercase e, and just give us CS? Okay. How would that work? How could we do that? Okay, so that's don't answer in the chat. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it at home. Okay, so that's one. How could we change this cut string method to make this and this match each other? Okay. That's one question. Second question I want you guys to think about is, what if instead of giving me everything up to that letter E and not including that letter E, what if I wanted to include it? What if I wanted this to return this instead? Okay. Because I'm like, well, the reason I wanted the E was I wanted to see where that E shows up. Right? So how could we change our method to be able to include this uppercase? To include this letter we were searching for, this character we were searching for. All right. So some questions there. All right. One other thing. I keep thinking of things I want to make sure you guys know. One, space is a character. Okay, space is a character. That's one that you guys get that we as programmers forget about a lot. Second, this gives me this stuff here, okay, or this there, okay, but this and this are not the same. This does not match this because this is an int, okay, and it's saying I can't find something that looks for string int combination because I have string char combination. Okay, so make sure you understand that this and this are not the same. Okay. One other thing, this, go back to this right here. That and that, these are not the same. This is also going to give me a runtime error as well. I can't find something that takes two strings. I have something that takes a string and a character, but I don't have anything that takes two strings. Okay. So make sure you know that those are different as well. Other questions? Okay. All right. So if there aren't any questions, good thoughts there, Eunice. If there aren't any other questions, then we can end there for today. Again, if you have any outstanding questions about the assignment that's due this weekend, make sure you get those to me sooner rather than later. Again, if you email me if you email me tomorrow or contact me tomorrow in the afternoon, I may not be able to respond. I might not be able to respond for a couple of days, so because it's the weekend. So make sure if you have questions, you get those to me sooner rather than later. All right. Other than that, we'll end there for today. And you guys have lab on Tuesday, and make sure you remember you also have your assignment-based quiz that will be Tuesday midday as well. All right. So I'll see you guys next week. Other than that, thank you for attending.